Good morning, everyone. Happy April 4th, 2016. Today is El Moria's birthday, also Ronaldo's birthday, and also my father, Bob Lewis's birthday, who is ascended. Early this morning, I received 50 new quips from beloved El Moria, which I'd like to share with you now as we invoke his presence in our midst throughout this day in every aspect of our lives, within our consciousness, within our power center, our throat chakra, and what it represents. Beloved El Moria, thank you for self-realizing through us today pure consciousness, divine radiance, the holiness of the will of God, and every aspect of beingness that we can now picture and objectify through our lives live to the glory of God. So here are some of the new quips. Become God's waiter. Every flower has mastered flow. Release your space of grace. That's re-lease or re-lease your space of grace. A master is always in bloom. Express radiance, radiate expressiveness. Co-create a new loving logic. Let your willingness be God's. Self-realization is God acceptance. Wisdom is truth realized in love fulfilled. Beingness requires supreme virya. Humility is the union of complete surrender and perfect acceptance. To weather storms, transcend the clouds. Your God identity is your true reality. Every mission fulfilled births a new world. Solar joy is divine bliss now. Fortify your aura with the power of love's awareness. self-realize a new state of beingness daily. I always reinvest my winnings. To be is to know God within, without, and all about. Complete submission is divine servility. Creativity turns intention into invention. Every blossom is an act of God. Imbibe the sun's radiant joy daily. Truth never pretends. The fragrant know pure compassion. Kind acts far outshine grandiose thoughts. Transcend the vehicle of your lesser mind. Impel all worlds upward. My new blue wave is a cosmic surge. Save the innocent, protect the humble. Vision is born of wisdom's shining. Truth exemplified is wisdom fulfilled. The alchemist's vision is far-sighted. Use every resource as if all depended on it with you. Trust in God impels one to an active, compassionate life. In meditation, consider at least one divine ideation. The legions of awareness quicken the brave. Cosmic fortitude rebirths civilizations. True gnosis always leads to self-realization. Perceptions are mutable, realizations are immutable. A life lived for God is a life lived in God. Godliness is holiness through love. The portal to perfection is compassion. The sage knows, the saint loves, the warrior proves. God is. Benefit all sentient beings through higher isness. Truth always trumps knowledge. When you desire true love, God appears. Virtue born of patience is everlasting. A fulfilled life is God directed. And finally, number 50. Labor with true love aglow within. I'd like to reflect on a few of these now with you. Becoming God's waiter is a wonderful image because I see it as waiting upon the Lord in a very personal way, tending to God's meal, and working with the chef to have the perfect timing of the delivery of that meal when it is fresh, warm, or hot, and ready for consumption. When you become a waiter in a restaurant, you have to be very, very sensitive. Sensitive to the requirements of your charge. Timing is all important. Decorum is essential. Tact and diplomacy is learned by working with many people. You have to move quickly and efficiently, very deftly. You have to have a good memory as well as write things down. Although I've seen some waiters who seem to have mastered the memory of what people request and carry out their orders, their requests with perfection. There is a lot to be learned in becoming a waiter or waitress, and knowing humanity, knowing the ins and outs of life itself, being very observant and yet respectful in every situation, showing gratitude, deference, and true humility. So, to put ourselves in the position of waiting upon the Lord or God, we really tend to God's needs or requirements, even though God really doesn't have any, in one sense. And yet, in another, God requires us, as His children, to expand consciousness, to expand the cosmos through our lives. And so God set in motion the entire creation to experience Him herself in expression. And as we wait upon God, hand and foot, soul and spirit, heart and mind, I believe that we will gain insights and new sensitivities that will allow us to transcend our lesser states of being and truly become self-realized. Every flower has mastered flow. You see the word flow within flower, and truly every flower is in the flow of divine expression. And in its adulthood, in its wonderment phase of existence, where it simply is and expresses beauty, grace, aroma, its nature. So we can take this to heart in our own being by mastering flow, by becoming a flower of God ourselves. shining forth our radiance, being expressive of our true nature. We do this easily when we are in the flow. If we try to interrupt things through any personal involvement of the lesser self, that flowering cannot occur in its wonderment and beauty. Release your space of grace. So we sign a new lease to inhabit this positioning of our spirits on this earth, our space of grace, to walk in the light, to be godly. And this release is a daily lease on life. We can have a new lease on life if we consider God in the equation, within the space that we inhabit, which hopefully is graced with love. So our space of grace is our aura. It's where we live, move, and have our being and consciousness. It's our vibration. And by leasing ourselves unto God, God inhabits our temple, and grace is the space in which we live with beauty, joy, reverence, holiness, and every virtue. A master is always in bloom. Many of us are in bloom at some point. Yet to master the art and the science of being always in bloom leads us to our true mastership, our true beingness in God. Our aura is always shining and brimming with light. We are radiant. We are a field of radiance. We are a sunflower of divine joy. So if a master is always in bloom, there is enough light in his or her aura to allow for the transcendence of that energy field to benefit sentient beings on earth. And so it is with every master, that they are like Jesus as the Christ, and when we touch their garment, we can be healed. Express radiance, radiate expressiveness. This reminds me of our loving rosaries, our rosaries of divine adoration, where we take two words and we kind of flip them. I am the love of God, I am a God of love. So if we express radiance, we do radiate that expressiveness through our being, through the aperture of our self, through our chakras, through our auras, through our loving hearts, and our face, our eyes, our gestures, the gracefulness that we exemplify. Co-create a new loving logic. This is interesting because you don't think of logic as being about love, and yet there is a logic to love that is beyond this world, that is godly and is of the Logos. So if we are co-creating a new loving logic, it transcends the logic of our human society and civilization today, and it goes into pure compassion, which is Buddhic mindfulness of the highest order, with Lord Maitreya, planetary Buddha, former world teacher. So this type of loving logic is what Buddhic mindfulness and compassion, loving kindness is. Let your willingness be God's. In other words, don't be willful in the human state, or willing to do things only for the human experience. Surrender your human will to the divine will, and then you enter a new level of willingness. It's not willy-nilly, it is true divine will, perfection of that blue fire radiance of God's eternal will. Self-realization is God acceptance. I think we all now know that We can only self-realize who we truly are if we accept God within ourselves, in the total sense of that acceptance. Wisdom is truth realized in love fulfilled. Wisdom, as we know, is knowledge practically experienced. And what better practicum do we have than love fulfilled, which brings truth into the equation and allows that wisdom to be realized as true God love. Beingness requires supreme virya. This is beingness of the highest order. This is true reality in our higher self. So the supreme virya is the complete acceptance of the will of God in its highest vibration, so that we enter true beingness in our divine presence. Humility is the union of complete surrender and perfect acceptance. The surrender that we engage in is, of course, surrender to God's will, where we let go and let God through perfect acceptance. This isn't a human acceptance that just accepts because we are really not given any other choice. It's a willing acceptance rather than a passive acceptance. Perfect acceptance is a willing acceptance to be who we truly are. And that leads us to divine abject humility, where we know that only God can act through us. Of ourselves, we are nothing. To weather storms, transcend the clouds. How often do we get embroiled in the storms of life and talk about our burdens, our cares, problems, issues with other people, rather than going beyond the temporary above the clouds where there is no storm because we are in a higher vibratory field. So it's much better to weather the storms by transcending the clouds than to be engaged so much in the disturbances below that play upon our psyche and bring about emotional turbulence. And finally, because we're coming to a close of our time together now, your God identity is your true reality. So long as we focus on this truth, that our God identity is our true reality, and remember it throughout our day, give deference to God and our higher self, all things shall be well. So God bless you. Happy birthday to Ronaldo Dabrowski. I'm not going to ask your age, but I know you're getting up there and in your wisdom age. So take care and thank you, El Moria. God bless. Have a great day.